I'm James Anderson, and I never imagined I'd be the proprietor of Edinburgh's most enigmatic antique shop. Yet here I am, guardian of secrets and keeper of curiosities at Anderson's Antiques. It's been 3 years since I inherited this place from my eccentric Uncle Alistair, and every day brings a new wonder, or a new terror. But I'm not alone in this strange journey. Isabella, the mysterious woman I found in the shop when I arrived, has become my constant companion and trusted friend. Her secret, that she's a vampire who's lived for centuries, was just the first of many revelations that have turned my world upside down. As I stand before a hidden alcove in the shop's back room today, I can't shake the feeling that we're about to uncover something that will make all our previous adventures seem like child's play. If only I knew how right I was. As Isabella and I stood before a long-neglected wall in the shop's back room, the air hung heavy with the scent of aged wood and forgotten treasures. Dust motes danced in the pale light streaming through a high window, lending an almost ethereal quality to the scene. "Are you certain about this, James?" Isabella's voice carried a hint of trepidation, her eyes scanning the cracked plaster before us. "This part of the shop, it's always felt off to me." I offered what I hoped was a reassuring smile, though I couldn't quite quell the nervousness in my stomach. "Come now, Izzy. We've faced far worse in this shop. What could be hiding behind an old wall?" With a deep breath, I raised the sledgehammer and brought it down with a resounding crack. The impact echoed through the shop, causing the myriad of antiques to rattle on their shelves as if in a warning. As plaster and brick began to crumble, a cloud of dust billowed forth, making both of us cough, but as the air cleared, I felt my jaw drop in astonishment. "Isabella," I whispered, my voice filled with awe and a touch of fear. Before us, hidden in a small alcove, stood a mirror. It was nearly a person's height, with an ornate golden frame adorned with intricate carvings of twisted vines and leering faces. Despite the years of dust coating its surface, the glass seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light of the room. I approached cautiously, my reflection wavering in the ancient glass. "It's not on any of Uncle Alistair's inventory lists," I murmured, more to myself than to Isabella. "How long has this been here?" Isabella hung back, and I could see the tension in her posture. "James, I don't like this. There's something wrong about it. Can't you feel it?" But I was transfixed, my hand brushing away the dust from the mirror's surface. A barely perceptible tremor ran through the frame as my fingers made contact with the cool glass. "It's magnificent," I breathed, my eyes gleaming with the excitement of discovery. "We should move it to my office for closer examination." Isabella opened her mouth to protest, but I was already planning how to maneuver the heavy artifact through the cluttered shop. I should have listened to her. I should have known better. But the allure of a new mystery was too strong to resist. As we carefully carried the mirror to my office, I didn't notice the faint whisper that seemed to emanate from its depths, nor how our reflections lingered for a moment too long after we had passed. That night, as Edinburgh succumbed to the embrace of darkness, Anderson's Antiques came alive with an energy it hadn't known in centuries. The mirror, now ensconced in my office, began to pulse with a soft, otherworldly glow. And in the silence of the empty shop, I could have sworn I heard whispers, sibilant, enticing voices calling out my name. Little did I know, our greatest challenge was just beginning. The following days brought a palpable change to Anderson's Antiques. An oppressive atmosphere hung over the shop, causing even our most enthusiastic regulars to hurry through their purchases and leave with an inexplicable sense of unease. I, however, was oblivious to the growing tension. I spent hours in my office, poring over the mirror, searching for any clue to its origins or purpose. Dark circles formed under my eyes, and my usually tidy appearance became disheveled. I was consumed by the mystery, driven by a compulsion I couldn't explain. One evening, as I sat staring into the mirror's depths, Isabella entered the office. I caught her reflection in the glass, and for a split second, I could have sworn I saw her features twist into something monstrous, fangs elongating, eyes burning with inhuman hunger. I whirled around, blinking rapidly, but Isabella looked normal, concern etched on her face. "James, you need to step away from that thing," she urged, gently touching my shoulder. "You've barely eaten or slept in days." I shrugged off her touch, irritation flaring unexpectedly. I'm fine, Izzy. I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. I can feel it. There's something about this mirror. It's trying to show me something. James, please, she whispered, her voice shaking. That mirror is dangerous. We need to get rid of it. But I was beyond reason. I turned on her, anger bubbling up from some dark place inside me. Get rid of it? Are you mad? This could be the most significant find in the shop's history. I won't let your baseless fears ruin this opportunity. As my angry words echoed in the small office, the mirror seemed to pulse, feeding off the negative energy. I saw Isabella steady herself against the wall, looking pale even for a vampire. Fine, she said quietly, hurt evident in her eyes. But don't say I didn't warn you. As she left the office, closing the door behind her, I returned to the mirror. For a split second, I saw not my reflection, but a vision of Anderson's antiques engulfed in flames, Isabella's agonized scream piercing through the roar of the inferno. I jerked back, my heart pounding, but the image was gone as quickly as it had appeared. Over the next few days, the mirror's influence grew stronger. Customers reported seeing their worst fears reflected in various objects around the shop. A young woman fled in tears after seeing her deceased grandmother beckoning to her from within an old music box. An ordinarily stoic businessman broke down in hysterics, claiming the stuffed owl in the corner had spoken to him in his father's disappointed voice. Isabella did her best to manage the chaos, but I could see its toll on her. She avoided my gaze, flinching whenever she caught sight of her reflection. I knew, somewhere in the rational part of my mind, growing smaller by the day, that I should be concerned. But the mirror's hold on me was too strong. Late at night, when the shop was closed and Isabella had retreated to her quarters in the basement, I found myself talking to the mirror and having hushed, intense conversations with some unseen entity. It promised me knowledge, power, and the answers to all the mysteries that had plagued me since inheriting the shop. All I had to do was give in and let it show me the truth. The tension between Isabella and I reached a breaking point one stormy evening as we closed the shop. A priceless vase slipped from my usually steady hands, shattering on the floor. As Isabella rushed to help clean up the mess, our hands brushed, and I recoiled as if burned. "Don't touch me," I snarled, my eyes wild. "I know what you're trying to do. You want to take the mirror for yourself, don't you? To use its power?" Isabella stared at me in shock. "James, what are you talking about? I don't want anything to do with that cursed thing. Can't you see what it's doing to us? To you?" But I was beyond reason. I advanced on her, my face contorted with rage and fear. "Liar! I've seen what you are in that mirror. A monster, waiting to destroy everything we've built." As Isabella backed away, hurt and anger flashed in her eyes, and neither noticed the figure watching from the rain-streaked window. A tall, gaunt man with eyes that gleamed with an otherworldly light observed the unfolding scene with grim satisfaction. The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the shop in stark flashes as our argument reached a fever pitch. And in my office, forgotten for the moment, the mirror pulsed with dark energy, drinking in the discord and growing ever stronger. I had no idea then, but our most significant test was yet to come. The curse of Anderson's antiques was about to reveal itself in full force, and Isabella and I would have to face our deepest fears if we hoped to survive. As thunder crashed overhead, drowning out the sounds of our heated argument, a sharp knock at the door startled us both into silence. Isabella and I exchanged wary glances, the momentary interruption breaking through the haze of anger and suspicion that had enveloped us. "We're closed," I called out, my voice hoarse from shouting. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Isabella, seeming grateful for any excuse to escape the suffocating tension, moved towards the door. "I'll see who it is," she muttered, pointedly avoiding my gaze. As she opened the door, a gust of wind and rain swept in, along with a tall, imposing figure. The man who stepped into Anderson's antiques seemed to bring the storm with him. His long, dark coat was drenched, water dripping onto the worn floorboards, and his wild, gray-streaked hair whipped about his face. But it was his eyes that caught my attention. They were a pale, almost colorless blue, and they seemed to look through us rather than at us. A shiver ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold draft. "I apologize for the late intrusion," the stranger said, his voice deep and resonant. "But I'm afraid this couldn't wait. My name is Elias Blackwood, and I've come about your mirror." I pushed past Isabella, my earlier anger now directed at this unexpected visitor. "How do you know about the mirror? Who are you?" Elias's unnerving gaze settled on me, a hint of sadness creeping into his expression. "I'm a historian, Mr. Anderson, specializing in cursed artifacts, and that mirror you've uncovered, it's one of the most dangerous objects I've ever encountered." A tense silence fell over the shop, broken only by the patter of rain against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. I looked between Isabella and Elias, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of doubt about the mirror's influence. "Come into the office," I said, my shoulders sagging slightly. "I think we have a lot to discuss." As we settled into my cramped office, the mirror loomed behind my desk, its presence impossible to ignore. Elias's eyes were drawn to it immediately, a mixture of fascination and dread evident in his expression. "It's worse than I feared," he murmured, almost to himself. "The curse has already taken hold." Isabella leaned forward, her earlier fear giving way to a desperate need for answers. "What curse? What's happening to us?" Elias tore his gaze away from the mirror, focusing on us with an intensity that made me shift uncomfortably. "That mirror once belonged to a powerful warlock named Elias Blackwood, my ancestor. He was obsessed with the nature of fear, believing that he could achieve immortality by understanding and controlling it." I scoffed, some of my usual skepticism returning. "Immortality through fear? That's absurd." "Is it?" Elias countered, his eyes flashing. "Think about it, Mr. Anderson. What drives human beings more than fear? What has shaped civilizations, sparked wars, and inspired great art and literature? Fear is the most primal, powerful force in the human psyche." He stood, pacing the small office as he continued his tale. "Erasmus spent years developing a ritual that would allow him to harness the power of fear. The mirror was to be his conduit, a portal between our world and a realm of pure terror. But something went wrong. Instead of gaining control over fear, he became trapped by it. His soul was pulled into the mirror, cursed to experience the worst fears of anyone who gazed upon it for all eternity." Isabella shuddered, and I remembered the monstrous reflection I had seen of her earlier. "So when we look into the mirror," I began, the horror of our situation dawning on me. "You see your deepest, darkest fears reflected at you," Elias finished for me. "And the mirror feeds on that fear, growing stronger each day. If left unchecked, it will continue to corrupt everything and everyone around it, turning this place into a nexus of terror and madness." I felt the blood drain from my face as the total weight of what we'd unleashed hit me. How do we stop it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Elias's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of hope entering his eyes. "There is a way to break the curse, but it won't be easy. You must enter the mirror's world and confront your fears head-on. Only by overcoming what terrifies you most can you hope to free yourselves and destroy Erasmus's hold on this realm." He reached into his coat and pulled out an ancient, weathered scroll. As he unrolled it on my desk, Isabella and I leaned in to see complex diagrams and dense text in a language neither of us recognized. "This scroll contains the ritual needed to enter the mirror's realm," Elias explained. "But be warned, the challenges you'll face there will be unlike anything you've ever experienced. The mirror knows your deepest fears, your most closely guarded secrets. It will use them against you without mercy." I glanced at Isabella, years of shared experiences and unspoken trust passing between us in that single look. Despite the fear and mistrust that had plagued us in recent days, I knew we would face this challenge together. "We'll do it," I said firmly, squeezing Isabella's hand. "Whatever it takes to end this curse and protect our shop." Elias nodded solemnly. "Very well. We should begin preparations immediately. The longer we wait, the stronger the mirror's influence grows." As we huddled around the desk, poring over the ancient scroll and discussing the intricacies of the ritual, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I glanced at the mirror, its surface rippling slightly, and for a moment, I could have sworn I saw a pair of malevolent eyes staring back at me. A cold, cruel smile spread across features that seemed both familiar and alien. I shook my head, trying to clear the unsettling image from my mind. The stage was set for our most significant challenge yet, and I could only hope that the bond between Isabella and me would be strong enough to withstand the horrors that awaited us within the cursed mirror. The preparations for the ritual took the better part of the night. Under Elias's guidance, Isabella and I transformed my office into a makeshift arcane chamber. Candles flickered at precise points around the room, their flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Intricate symbols were chalked onto the floor in a wide circle surrounding the mirror, which seemed to pulse with otherworldly energy as the hour of the ritual drew near. As dawn's first light began to creep through the windows, Elias turned to us with a grave expression. "This is your last chance to turn back," he warned. "Once you enter the mirror's realm, there's no guarantee you'll be able to return. Are you certain you want to go through with this?" I exchanged a look with Isabella. Despite the fear and mistrust that had plagued us in recent days, I knew we would face this challenge together. "We're sure," I said firmly, squeezing Isabella's hand. "Whatever it takes to end this curse and protect our shop." Isabella nodded in agreement, her dark eyes blazing with determination. "We've faced the unknown before. We'll do it again." Elias studied us for a moment, then nodded solemnly. "Very well. Take your position in front of the mirror. Remember, once inside, you must confront and overcome your deepest fears. Only then will you have a chance of breaking the curse and freeing yourselves." As Isabella and I stood before the mirror, its surface shimmered and rippled like disturbed water. Elias's voice rose in a chant, the words of the ancient ritual echoing through the room with an otherworldly resonance. The candles flickered wildly, and a wind that shouldn't have been possible indoors whipped around us. "Whatever happens, don't let go of each other," Elias called out over the rising din. "Your bond is your strength." With a final surge of energy, the mirror's surface seemed to liquefy. I felt an irresistible pull, and with a shared glance of reassurance with Isabella, we stepped forward into the unknown. The sensation was like plunging into icy water. For a moment, all was darkness and confusion. When my vision cleared, I was alone in a twisted, nightmarish version of Anderson's antiques. The familiar shelves were warped and stretched, casting impossible shadows. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the faint echoes of distant screams. "Isabella?" I called out, sounding muffled and strange in this distorted reality. There was no response, and a tendril of fear crept up my spine as I realized we had been separated. I began navigating through the shop's warped version, corridors twisting and changing with each step. The walls were lined with mirrors, each showing a different destruction and loss scene. In one, I saw Anderson's antiques engulfed in flames. In another, I witnessed Isabella turning away in disgust and hatred. "This isn't real," I muttered, trying to hold on to my sanity. "It's all an illusion." But as I rounded a corner, I came face to face with my greatest fear. There, amidst the burning ruins of the shop, stood my uncle Alistair, the eccentric, brilliant man who had entrusted me with his life's work. "You've failed me, James," the apparition said, its voice dripping with disappointment. "You've destroyed everything I built. You're not worthy of the Anderson legacy." I felt my heart constrict, years of self-doubt and insecurity threatening to overwhelm me. But then I remembered Isabella, the life we had built together, the mysteries we had solved, the dangers we had faced. "No," I said, my voice growing stronger. "You're not my uncle. You're just a shadow, a trick of this cursed place. Uncle Alistair believed in me, and I've honored his legacy. Anderson's Antiques is stronger than ever, and I won't let you or anyone else tear it down." As I stood my ground, the illusion of my uncle flickered and faded, the flames dying down around me. I felt a surge of confidence and purpose. Somewhere in this maze, Isabella needed me, and I was determined to find her. Little did I know, Isabella was facing her battle against the darkness within her. But as we struggled through our separate trials, I held on to the hope that our bond would be strong enough to overcome the mirror's curse and lead us back to each other. The actual test of our resolve was only beginning, and the fate of Anderson's Antiques hung in the balance. Meanwhile, Isabella found herself in an entirely different scenario. She was standing in a grand ballroom, reminiscent of her life before joining Anderson's Antiques. But something was wrong. The other guests, dressed in Victorian finery, turned to look at her with eyes that glowed an unnatural red. As they smiled, Isabella saw razor-sharp fangs glinting in the candlelight. "Welcome home, sister," a silky voice whispered. Isabella whirled to find a mirror image of herself, but with pale skin, blood-red eyes, and an aura of evil power. "Isn't it time you embraced your true nature?" Isabella felt a pull deep within herself, the part of herself she had always feared and suppressed. She was initially tempted by the vision of strength and freedom from fear. But then she thought of me, the life we had built at Anderson's Antiques, and all the people we had helped. "No," Isabella said firmly, standing tall. "My strength doesn't come from darkness or fear. It comes from love, from the family I've chosen. I am more than my bloodline, and I choose to use my power to protect, not to harm." As she spoke, Isabella felt a warmth spreading through her chest. The ballroom around her began to waver and dissolve, the vampire reflections hissing and recoiling from her newfound confidence. Suddenly, Isabella found herself in the twisted version of Anderson's Antiques. She collided with me as she turned a corner, crying out in surprise and relief. "James, you're all right," Isabella exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. I hugged her tightly, the tension in my body easing at our reunion. "I'm so glad I found you, Izzy. Are you okay? Did you see?" Isabella nodded grimly. "Our worst fears brought to life. But James, I think I understand now. This place doesn't just show us what we're afraid of. It's testing us, seeing if we have the strength to overcome those fears." My eyes lit up with understanding. "You're right, and by facing those fears head on, we weaken the curse's hold on us," Isabella finished. Our moment of triumph was short-lived, however. The world around us began to shake violently, the twisted architecture of the shop groaning and shifting. A booming voice echoed through the corridors, filled with rage and desperation. "Fools," it thundered. "You think you can break my curse so easily? I am Elias Blackwood, master of fear and terror. Your acts will not defeat me." The floor beneath our feet crumbled away, revealing a swirling darkness. As we clung to each other, trying to find stable ground, we saw a figure emerging from the chaos, a tall, gaunt man with eyes that burned with eldritch fire. Elias Blackwood, the creator of the cursed mirror, had finally revealed himself. "Your fears give me strength," Erasmus snarled, tendrils of shadow writhing around him. "I will trap you here for eternity, feeding off your terror, growing ever stronger." We found ourselves backed against the edge of the abyss, Erasmus advancing on them with an evil purpose. But as they stood hand in hand, they felt a strange calm settle over them. "We're not afraid of you," James said, his voice steady and clear. Isabella nodded in agreement. "Our fears don't control us. We've faced and overcome them and are stronger together because of it." A warm light emanated from our clasped hands as we spoke, growing brighter and more intense with each word. Erasmus shrieked in anger and pain, shielding his eyes from the radiance. "No, this cannot be. Fear is eternal. Fear is all-powerful." But we stood firm, the light of our bond pushing back the darkness, causing the twisted world around us to crack and splinter. "Fear isn't all-powerful," I said. "Love is stronger," Isabella finished. With a final, defiant cry, we raised our joined hands. The light exploded outward in a blinding flash, engulfing Erasmus and shattering the mirror world around us. We felt falling, tumbling through light and shadow, until suddenly, we found ourselves back in the office of Anderson's Antiques, gasping and disoriented. The mirror shuddered violently, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. With a sound like 1,000 screaming voices, it shattered into 1,000 glittering shards, leaving nothing but an empty frame. Elias rushed to our side, his eyes wide with awe and concern. "You did it," he breathed. "You broke the curse. I've never seen anything like it." As the adrenaline of our ordeal began to fade, I and Isabella sagged against each other, exhausted but triumphant. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over the shop for days was gone, replaced by a sense of lightness and peace. "Is it over?" Isabella asked, her voice hoarse. "Truly over?" Elias nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "The curse is broken. Erasmus's soul has been freed, or perhaps destroyed. Either way, he'll trouble this world no more." I looked at the empty frame, then at Isabella, my eyes shining with emotion. "We did it, Izzy. Together." Isabella squeezed his hand, feeling a profound sense of gratitude and love. We did. No more secrets, no more fears between us. Whatever comes next, we'll face it side by side. As the first rays of dawn began to stream through the windows, painting the office in warm golden light, the three of us cleaned up the remnants of the ritual and the shattered mirror. There was a sense of new beginnings in the air, a feeling that we had turned a page in the strange and wonderful story of Anderson's antiques. But as Elias prepared to leave, he paused at the door, his expression serious again. "You've done a remarkable thing here," he said, "but I fear this may be just the beginning." Isabella and I exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" I asked. Elias sighed heavily. "Breaking such a powerful curse sends ripples through the supernatural world. Other forces are out there, other dangers that may have noticed what transpired here." He reached into his coat, pulled out a small, leather-bound book, and handed it to Isabella. "This contains some of my research and warnings about other cursed objects and supernatural threats. I think you'll find it useful in the days to come." As Isabella flipped through the book, her eyes widened at some entries. James peered over her shoulder, his expression a mixture of concern and excitement at the prospect of new mysteries. "Thank you, Elias," Isabella said softly, "for everything." Elias nodded, a hint of sadness in his pale eyes. "Take care of each other, and be vigilant. The night has eyes, and not all of them are friendly." With those cryptic words, he turned and walked out into the misty Edinburgh morning, his tall figure soon swallowed up by the fog. Isabella and I stood in the doorway of Anderson's Antiques, watching him go. As we headed back inside, ready to face whatever new challenges awaited us, Isabella noticed a shadowy figure watching from across the street, a tall, slender silhouette with eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. The figure smiled, revealing teeth that were just a bit too sharp to be human. "Well played, Anderson's Antiques," it murmured in a voice like silk over steel. "But the game is far from over. The Night Watcher is always watching, always waiting. And your little adventure has only made things interesting." As the figure melted back into the shadows, a chill wind swept down the street, promising new terrors and untold mysteries. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tales. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and share your scary encounters. And consider joining the Fear Frequencies community for exclusive perks and early access to new content. Your support helps us create even more thrilling stories. And if you really enjoyed it, please consider leaving a super thanks.